Hello guys, good afternoon. How you all doing? I'm sure you're staying safe and indoors. You really shouldn't be going out by this time, but it's all good. Okay, so today we're going to continue our class on website authoring, and what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to introduce all of you to the Microsoft Expression Web 4 environment. Um, This is the platform you're going to use to do your website authoring in the IGCSE exams. So it's very important you understand this environment and how to use it. Now, I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover every angle of the Microsoft Expression Web, but I'll do the best I can. Now, for the sake of this exam, it's important to know how to use this platform. Now, I said one of the advantages of Microsoft Expression Web is the fact that you do not have to write any code. What you're just basically doing is drag and drop, fill in a form, click here, click there, but you're not writing any code. However, it is also important that you understand how the codes are being formed. You don't have to know how to write the code very well, but just understand the workings behind the code. In our last class, we talked a little bit about the basic structure of HTML. So we're going to continue from there, but before we go into that, we're going to look at, like I said, look at the expression web and different areas that you would have to come in contact with when you're answering your questions in the exams. Then when we start answering some past questions, I'll show you different techniques or different ways you can actually use expression web or whatever technique you feel will be fast enough for you or is faster for you to use, then you can apply this technique. Okay, so we'll also be looking at some tags, common tag elements that you can apply to different content. So before we dive into the HTML code itself, let's look at the environment. Now, the first thing I'm going to talk about in your Microsoft Expression Web environment is the panels. Let me see if I can just restructure this a bit, make it look more presentable. So I can just click and drag down. What I want to do is I'm trying to make my expression web look like how yours should look like. Mine is looking different because I modified it a bit to suit how I choose to work when I'm building websites or building different environments. Okay, so this should come out. Okay, got you. I have you. Good. Now, I'm sure your Microsoft Expression Web looks like this. And if you don't have it installed, you can go on Edmodo on the ICT Class Hub small group. I attached the video and a link to where you can download the Microsoft Expression Web and a video that shows you how to install it. So you can pause this video around here and quickly go and install it. Okay, so if you're done installing the Microsoft Expression Web, let's take a look at how the environment looks like. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the panels. Okay, now when you start up your Microsoft Expression Web, you have a couple of panels available to you. The first one is the folder list. Now the folder list panel just basically shows you the folder or your website project workspace and all the files that are contained inside that directory. Um, It's also a unique place where you can add new files, remove new files, but whatever files you're creating inside that directory is going to go inside that work area is going to be displayed there. And it's also good to use because it makes it easy for you to just drag whatever content you want to put on the web page and just drag it into the form. You also have things like the tag properties. It just basically shows you a list of all the attributes or the properties you can apply to a particular tag, and gives you like a shortcut on how to apply them, like you can see that I'm doing here. Okay, now the same concept applies to your CSS property. The CSS property allows you to work on styles. So I'm not currently looking at the CSS file, so that's why this is showing empty. Now on your right hand side you have your toolbox. Now this gives you different tool controls you can apply to your page, like if you want to use an image, you want to use a page break, a section divider, span across content, you want to use a paragraph, tag, whatever it is, you want to build a form, you want to use an input box like when you're building a login form. Okay, so you can use all of this: a submit button, radio button, input password, text field, and so on and so forth. Okay, now the manage styles and apply styles, this area we're going to work with this tool a lot when we start modifying our CSS content. Like I said, you're not writing any CSS code, neither are you writing any HTML code. So I'm going to show you how to use those features. Now, coming back to the tag properties and the CSS properties, you can work with this one, but I wouldn't advise you to do that. It mostly just slows down what you need to do. It's a bit more technical for this stage, so I'll just tell you to skip this one for now. However, you can still use it. Okay, so now the next environment I'm going to talk about is your views. In Microsoft Expression Web, they basically give you three types of view. The first one is your design view that allows you to see the items you are putting up. Like for instance, you put an image here. Okay, let me just browse and put an image. Browse. Pictures. Okay, so let me say I put this image in. Okay, so you can also specify the dimensions. Maybe I want this as 300. Now I'll show you how to do all this and how to use them properly. Okay, then I might want to put up some write-ups here. Just imagine I'm playing with this. So this is the first view. Your design view allows you to see how, or give you like a bleak preview how the website would look like and the positions of your content, okay, while you're designing. Now the next one I'm going to talk about is the code view. Now in the code view, it shows you all the codes that are responsible for generating all of this and the content. So you can see a lot of content are being added up here. Okay, I'll explain this a little bit more and you'll see how the codes are being generated. Now the next one is the split view. The split view basically shows you the design view and the code view. So this one, it's easier to use this, especially when you want to learn how the codes are being written. For instance, if I hit the enter button, okay, and I'm going to probably, okay, so it's telling me I'm entering the next paragraph. Let's say for instance I want to go to another area like this one for instance, and I start typing hello. Now if you take a look at the spot here, you will see that the content are being written there. How are you? So this is how it does it. It generates the code while you're putting up the content in the design view. Alright, so now for us to have a fresh environment, I'm going to go back to my design view and I'll clear up everything I've done so far. Okay, so Places you will need to also consider looking are your menus, like your file menu, of course, basic things you can view from there, the edit menu, the views, insert. Now, most people come through this insert to do things like you want to insert a new HTML page or content, like a div section, a span section, horizontal row, image frame, layers. Um, these are scripting languages. The controls for them, like button, checkbox, radio buttons, all those things. PHP is a scripting language. Okay, you want to add a hyperlink, but for this level you mostly want to come here if you want to add a hyperlink, you want to insert a picture, or you want to insert any other media like a flash movie, silver video, any player. Maybe you want to insert a player on your web page. Okay, now formats. It allows you to structure things like your CSS properties and the rest. But enough of all this. This is the area, these are the tabs I want you to focus on. You see the table tag, the site tab, and the panels. Okay. You can also use Windows. Windows just basically allows you to switch between any of the tabs you have open here. But remember, the major ones you should focus on is the table tag, the site tab, and the panels. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the panels first. The panels basically allows you to add or remove different panels. Like for instance, I can decide to remove the apply styles by just unchecking it, and that is gone. Or I can also add that back. So if you're in the exam one, for instance, you just realize your folder list is missing, or you mistakenly close your folder list, you do not need to panic. All you just need to do is come to panels and click on it, and that will add it back for you. Okay, now the next one I'm going to talk about is your table. Now your table tab basically allows you to insert a table structure. Now this is very important because almost everything you're going to do in website authoring, it's going to have a table structure. For IGCSE, they ask you to usually build your site using table structures. So it's going to ask you to use that. So you can come here to build it. You can also come to this section here and add your table from it. Okay. All right. So let me remove this table. And then finally the site. Now in your IGCSE exams, they'll ask you to copy certain files and put them inside a folder, or create a folder and put them inside that folder and rename the folder to something, maybe mmm underscore html, and they'll ask you to use all those files inside that mmm underscore html folder to create it. So for me, this is the technique I use, and this is very reliable for me. I usually will import that mmm underscore HTML folder into Expression Web. So I can have access to all the files that I will need to work. And I know everything I have to do from then forth is within Expression Web. I don't have to go back and forth, going back to my work area folder and then coming back to Expression Web. For me, I find that that's time consuming. So instead of going back and forth between Expression Web, my work area folder, I just import that folder directly into Expression Web and I can work from here. When we're answering past questions, I'll show you how to do that. But for now, we're not going to do that. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at is the different tags, common tags you're going to work with. Okay, they're called styles because you'll be asked to apply different styles to them. Now, like the heading tags, the unordered list, the ordered list, the paragraph tag. Okay, there are a lot of them you can apply. But the common ones that you'll be asked to work with is the paragraph, the heading tags from heading 1 to 6, the unordered list and ordered list tags. And I'll show you examples of how they work. Okay. You, as much as possible, you're not going to work with the fonts from here, okay, and the font sizes. Now, the reason why you're not going to use this one is because we're actually going to be doing that from the CSS side. They'll always ask you to do that from the CSS side. Okay. All right. So if you all understand this part, then we can move forward. Now, what I want us to go back to from our last class is the basic structure of a HTML code. So, for us to understand this, when you open up a web page in Expression Web, it gives you all this bunch of codes. Now, it might look confusing, but it's really that simple. It still has the basic structure of the HTML code, if you remember, or of a web page, HTML web page. Uh, just has a little XML codes added to it. So what I can do is I can remove all those additional codes. So I can remove this one from this tag. The method that tags here, I don't think we'll need that for now. Where I won't need the title tag. Okay, I'm sure it's beginning to look familiar to you. So if I just copy this once and do a tab to indent. Okay, so now you have the basic structure of the HTML code. Now, everything you're going to do is going to be within the structure. And I remember I told you that in your HTML tag, you have two sections. You have the head section and you have the body section. Okay, and I said the head section is where you put information that is should be only accessible to the browser, so only the web browser can see that information. And the body section is where you put information you want to send to the user. Okay, now I said that the contents of your web page are usually put within a tag. For instance, I say hello. Perhaps I should do this in a split view. Okay, so now the moment I typed hello in the design view, on the code view, it added a paragraph tag and then put the content hello to it. Okay, now I can decide to add another one. For instance, I say how are you? Okay, I told you now this content have been added. I can also change this tag from this hello. Now I can give it a heading 1. Okay, so it changed the tag to heading 1. Now remember I said tags will always tell, in the last class I said tags will always tell the browser how to interpret or how to display the content within its tag. Okay, so like for instance we're saying this hello should be styled to a heading 1. So this h1 tag is telling the browser how to display this content hello on the web page. Okay, the same thing, I can change this one to a heading 2, so it also changes it. So I can say what, why, when, where. So let's assume I have content like this. Okay, I can also style this ones to become sorry, let me copy that again. Style this ones to become an ordered list. Okay, now remember ordered list are contents that are numeric, right? And I said unordered list are the ones that are like in bullet form. Okay, so you can also do things like this. and them. Okay, so what if, for instance, you have, let me clear this. You have a situation where you have what, okay, uh, wow, sorry, forgive that, when, where, for instance, and I try applying, I hope this works. Okay, so it's still applying it this way for me. Ordered list. I'm looking for a situation where it just takes everything and puts them in one. Okay, so let's just change this to paragraph tag. Let's see, if I move this down, it's moving into a new paragraph. Okay, so this is not giving me the example I wanted, but it's fine. Um, Basically, if what I'm trying to achieve, if you have all this listed and you select all of them and try to make them a bullet form, okay, let's use the unordered list, and you notice for some reason only one bullet form is showing and the rest are not, all you can simply do is just hit the backspace button and then hit enter again, and that will correct it. So that's what I was trying to, the instance I was trying to show you. Okay, now I want to explain this tag. The first thing it did was it put the UL tag. The UL stands for unordered, right? So the unordered list tag, the opening tag, and then the closing tag, then it puts this content in. It now says each of these items, like the what, the while, the when, and where, is called list item. So that's why you have the LI tag. Okay. So what should be in the first list is what? The next one is while, when, and where. So you just arrange them in a list item tag like this. But they all fall within the unordered list tag. Same thing with the ordered list. So you see the UL now has just been changed to what? OL. Okay, I hope that is understandable. If you have any question, you can just drop it down on the comment section in Edmodo there, and I'll answer as soon as I see it. Okay, let's move forward. Now, the next one I want us to look at is the table structure. This is very key because before you start writing your codes and everything, it's actually the first thing you will have to design your table structure. Okay, so the moment I cleared that, it now cleared all the code. You can see the body section is now empty again. Okay, so now I want you guys to understand how the table is being created for your website. Now, what you need to do is come to the site, sorry, the table tab here, and click on insert table. So let's assume we're supposed to build a table with 3 rows and 2 columns. Now it could be more, it could be less, okay? Now I'll just click OK, and that creates that for me. Now if you look at within the table content, the body content or section of our HTML code, you see it created this tag. Now what this does is it first creates the table tag. Okay, now you can see the table tag just highlights the entire table. Okay, now all those contents within it are within the table tag, the opening and closing table tag. Now what it will now do later on is to create the rows, the table rows. So it's now specifying what are the table rows. So for instance, this is row 1. Okay, so you can see it's highlighting all the content within the opening and closing row 1. This is row 2, and then this is row 3. Okay, So the TR here means table row. Okay. Now after it's designed the first row, second row, and then the third row, because we said we want a table with 3 rows and 2 columns. This is where it gets tricky. It's trying to figure out, how do I design the column section? Okay, we know TR is table row. I'm sure you can't see anything called TC there, right? No table column. Yes, that's because there's no tag called TC. Now, what HTML does, or how you design the table in HTML, is, first of all, you build the outer table structure, which is what we did here. Okay, it passed a property called the width property called 100%. So that's what it's doing there. That's what that style equal to width equal to 100. It's just saying style this table so that the width is 100%, meaning it's going to fill the entire web page. Okay, we're going to change that later on, because they will always specify your table width for you. Now, to design the column, it first identifies, if I want to design a table with 2 columns, how many cells will I have in each row? Now, if it's 2 columns, this is column 1, this is column 2, right? So that means you're going to, in each row, you're going to have 2 cells. So it's going to create what we call a TD tag. Okay, this TD tag means table data. Table data. Oh, by the way, if you see things like this within the tags, it just means space. It creates an empty space. That is why you can have this large space here in the cell. Okay. Now the table data is representing what we call a cell, or what you understand by cell. So for instance, the first row will have 2 cells. So this is the first one and this is the second one. Okay. The second row will have 2 cells, the first one and the second one. The third row will have 2 cells as well, the second one and the third one. So if it's a 3 column table we design, you're going to have 3 table data in each row. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you, is how to merge cells, because you will also be required to merge cells when you're creating your table. So for the common one is, the first row is always, the cells are always merged. So what you do is you select that first row, right click and go to modify and then merge cells. Okay, so what this does is it changes the table data into one, because you have 1 cell there, and specifies a property called column span and says that should be equal to 2. Now what this means is, you just basically took 2 cells and made it into one. Okay, I hope this is understandable. Now you can also merge down the row. So I'm going to select this one. Okay, these 2 cells here, right click. Now did you notice when I selected these 2 cells, it takes the first cell in row 2 and the first cell in row 3. So when I right click and do modify and merge cell, now what this does is it deletes 1 cell from row 3 and then leaves the cell in row 2 and then does a row span. The first one is a column span because you're merging across the column. This is a row span because you are merging down the row, and say it's 2. So which means 2 of the cells are merged to make 1. So this is the basic concept you need to understand about creating the tables. Now the next thing we're going to look at is how to specify the dimensions for the table. For instance, I can, if they give me the total width, or I can deduce the total width of this table, all I need to do is just click here. Okay, or I can right click on it and say tag property. That's the table now, and I can now specify I want this in pixels, and maybe I want it at 900 pixels. Sometimes they'll tell you to also make your table centered aligned. So you can come here and choose alignment and say center. Okay. Now, as much as possible, this is the most you should do on this table property dialog box. Setting the number of rows, the number of columns, the width dimension, and the alignment. I would advise you not to go any further from here because most times when you try to do other modifications, it starts embedding your CSS styles into your table and you do not want that. Okay, so now that I have the structure in place and I've specified the width for my table, I can start specifying the width for each row. For instance, row 1, I can right click on it and say cell property. Now take note, I'm not doing table property, I'm doing cell property because I'm working on that particular cell. I'm specifying the height and width for that cell. So I can say specify height, specify width, and I want to make this, let's say the width is already 900, so we know that because we merged the two cells. Now the height I want to specify, I can make this 100 pixels. They'll always ask you to make your dimensions in pixels. Okay. For this one, I want to specify the width to be, let's say 500, and the height I'll specify to be, let's say 400. Okay. Now please take note, the moment we're making these changes to our table, you can see them being applied to your code. Like for instance, the table is now centered aligned and the width is 900. Okay, for row 1, we'll specify the width as 900 and the height as 100. For row 2, we'll specify the width as 500 and okay, for the first cell in row 2, we specify the width as 500 and the height as 400. Now when we did that, you notice that it kind of shrinked the other content in the second cell here, that's this cell. So what we can do is we can just come here, right click and do cell property, then we can specify its own dimension. Now since the other one, the width is 900, 500, sorry, so this one the width will be 400 because 400 plus 500 will make it 900. And then we can specify the height for this cell to be 200. So let me apply this. If you look at the full design view, you can see that our table is now taking a proper structure, more expanding more appropriately. The same thing here, the code for this one, or the dimensions, the height and width haven't been specified. So let's do that now. The width is also 400 and the height here is 200. Okay, so now we have a more even table structure. If I go to my code view, you see it's designing the structure and the content for me. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, or you can begin doing, is now adding up your content. So this place looks like something you want to put a picture, looks like a write-up, heading. For instance, I can give a title here in row 1. I say welcome to website authoring 101, and I can specify the style to be heading 1. Here I would say this is how you enter text content. Okay, then I can decide to put my name. What is wrong with me today? So center number and candidate number 007. Okay, so we can decide to add a picture. We don't have a folder list yet, so I can't really drag and drop, but I can use the image here and put up a picture. So I can browse. Let's use the one we used before. Good. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to specify so it fits the width appropriately. So I'll double click on the image again, then click on the appearance tab. Let's specify the width to be 500 because we want it to fit appropriately. And there we go, voila. Okay, so I can modify this again. Now this says 500, but because we kept aspect ratio, so it's 2055, but I want this to be 400 so it fits perfectly. There we go. Alright, now this is just how you put up the content. Now when you're putting up all this content, if you go to your code view, you see that it's adding up the codes for you and everything you need to do. Like it's using an image tag here and some properties to import the image, specifying the height and the width of the image. It's added the content. This is how you enter the text content, my name, center number, and candidate number. So it's building the codes for you. You really do not have to write any code like I said earlier on. Okay, now let's proceed. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use hyperlinks. So let's imagine you're supposed to use, for instance, the name Emmanuel to create a hyperlink. So I'm going to select just Emmanuel. Now once I've selected that, I'll right click and click on hyperlink, or you can come to insert and after you've highlighted and just say hyperlink, or you can use shortcut Ctrl K, whatever it is you're supposed to do. Now the text to display is talking about the text you're supposed to highlight or use. So for this case it's Emmanuel. Now you can create hyperlinks for email addresses. Let's use this one. Let's say I don't know at Gmail. By the way, this email address does not exist. Okay, so you can add a subject, testing for instance. Now you see when I added that I don't know at gmail.com, he added the mail too. Please, as much as possible, do not remove this because this is what forces a redirect to your email account or your Outlook account. Okay, now we can also add things like you can make a hyperlink to a web page. All you just need to do is just copy the URL of the web page and paste it where it says address. Okay, now you might also be asked to, let's say, create a hyperlink to a website, okay, or to a new web page or a web page, or if they specify, let's say you have another web page on this document called untitled 2 underscore 2.html or htm, and you want to make a hyperlink to it. So all you just need to do is click on this one and it will just add it to the address bar. Okay, then they say add a target frame to a new window called something, maybe called home. So you can change the blank to home. Always make sure it's small letters. Then you click OK and then OK. So that's how you create the hyperlink. So I'm going to do it using email. Now if I go to my code view, you'll see the hyperlink was created. It has a target called home and created on the name Emmanuel. Alright, so we're going to stop here today. In our next video or in our next class, we're going to look at CSS and how they work. Or better still, I haven't decided yet. I probably might just make us answer one or two past questions before we treat the other ones. But let's do CSS in our next class. See you guys later on. Remember to stay safe. Don't touch your eyes. Don't touch your nose. Don't touch your mouth. As much as possible, try to avoid touching your face. Make sure you wash your hand regularly with soap under running water. And also remember to sanitize your hand as often as possible. See you guys in our next class. Bye.